So let's start with the 1.8 billion. It sounds wonderful on the face of it, of course. No one's going to shirk at the fact that that sort of money is going to be put into the NHS. But, of course, lots of people saying it's just a drop in the ocean. There's £6 billion backlog in terms of infrastructure and buildings and equipment that needs sorting out as well. What do you say to them?
Well, it is great news that the new Prime Minister is backing the NHS so strongly. His top domestic priority, the whole government's top domestic priority, to make sure that the NHS is always there for you and for every single one of your viewers when they need it. And this extra money, which is new from the Treasury, of course, it's all ultimately taxpayers' money, but this new allocation of money will go to 20 much-needed hospital upgrade projects right around the country. I'm here in Oxford. There's going to be a new neonatal intensive care unit and operating theatres at Luton down the road. I'm going to Boston later today. They're getting a new A&E. It's incredibly important, the A&E in Boston, because Boston's quite remote and it takes more than an hour to drive to the next A&E. So we've got a big commitment of upgrades across the country, and it's all part of a long-term funding package, 33 billion extra over the next 5 years. This is in addition to that. But of course, you know, the NHS always needs upgrading. We've got to keep doing that. And we've got to keep finding the money and keeping the economy strong to pay for it.
So shoring up the buildings is important, but urgent action clearly needed to shore up the staffing shortages as well. 100,000 vacancies in the NHS Trust at the moment. We're short of nurses, we're short of doctors. You can improve the facilities in Boston, in Luton and where you are in Oxford, but if you haven't got the staff to work them, then we're going to be failing at the front line as well. Are you going to be putting money into trying to recruit more doctors and nurses, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. You're completely right. You know, ultimately, the NHS is a collection of buildings and 1.4 million brilliant people who work in it. And we need more as we put more money in. Of course, there's going to be a need for more doctors, more nurses, more other health professionals right across the NHS. We've got record numbers in training at the moment, and we've got to make sure that we keep the people who we've got. So that's a big part of it, on top of the need for improvements in buildings and new facilities like the ones that we're announcing today.
I don't want to be a killjoy. No one's going to be ever sad about more money going to the NHS. It seems like a great thing, but where is it coming from?
Well, ultimately, it all comes from taxpayers, doesn't it? I mean, you can only have these strong public services and extra money if the economy's going strongly. There's a record number of people in work in Britain at the moment. That's great news. It means there's more people paying income tax. It means there's more tax revenues coming into the exchequer. So, you know, having a strong economy and having good public services go hand in hand, and that's ultimately where the money's coming from.
Well, Philip Hammond, the outgoing Chancellor of the Exchequer, feels like a lot of sacrifice was made by a lot of people, lots of austerity to accumulate this money and get things in shape, and he warns, spend it wisely and only if no deal can be avoided. Are you spending the money that we'll need if no deal, which, depending on what papers you read, seems inevitable, is heading our way?
No, our proposals for Brexit are that we should get a deal. That is the prime objective. Of course, we've got to prepare for leaving without a deal either if the EU doesn't make any movement. And that's part of my job to make sure that's in place. But this money, these new investments, will happen whatever the Brexit scenario. Because whatever happens on Brexit, we need the NHS to be strong long into the future. You know, we all rely on it. I rely on it. You rely on it. Everybody who's watching this relies on it. Actually, we're going to Boston, where my grandmother worked as a nurse, night shifts all the way through her career. So it's quite special for me to be able to go back to that hospital where my grandmother worked and announce the new A&E. I'm really looking forward to that. But that's irrespective of Brexit. They need a new A&E in Boston.
But you did say that this has come from a strong economy, and of course the threat of no deal, lots of experts say, will mean that the economy is at the very least changeable, could be devastated. You yourself have said if we head into no deal, you couldn't guarantee that people wouldn't die. Do you still stand by that? Are you still worried by that?
Well, I guarantee that we now have full plans in place to make sure that the NHS will be prepared, whatever the Brexit scenario. That was some time ago, and we've since then done a huge amount of planning to make sure that there's an unhindered supply of medicines, whatever the Brexit scenario. We've got those plans in place.
So
we've been working very closely with the pharmaceutical
safety.
industry.
So you can now guarantee people
Yes,
won't die.
I can guarantee that the full plans are in place so that people will be able to get their medicines. Now, you know, there are 12,000 medicines that are generally prescribed licensed to be prescribed in Britain. And even in normal times, there's always a handful which are in short supply, and we constantly, in fact, we have a unit in the department that constantly works on these to make sure there's always the unhindered flow. And the plans we've got are for that to continue exactly as normal through a no-deal Brexit, if that's what's necessary, making sure that we've got the routes to get medicines into the country and we've got the spare supplies of medicines that we need in the country.
Okay,
We've
so
now
you
been working
can
on those plans for a
guarantee
long time.
no one is going to die because of a no-deal Brexit. Of course, you can't guarantee no one's going to die. Unfortunately, that happens. But can you guarantee now then that no one will die because of Brexit, a no-deal Brexit?
Well, as you said, the thing is in the health service, one of the things I've learned as health secretary is that, you know, it's a risk-based business. You know, we're keeping people alive is very hard work. This is what hospitals do all of the time. What I can guarantee to you is that we have full plans in place to deliver the unhindered supply of medicines and to make sure the NHS runs as effectively as it does today through any Brexit scenario.
Now, we know you've got a very busy day ahead and we're going to let you go very shortly. One last thing, though. It does feel, Matt, that with all these announcements, the extra police, the 1.8 billion for the NHS, the approaching October the 31st, that Boris Johnson, new Prime Minister, is feeling his way towards an autumn general election. It feels like he's sweetening up the public, putting out a lot of exciting announcements on domestic issues as well. Is that something that you're all thinking about? And were we to face an election in the autumn, is that something you would welcome, something you'd look forward to?
No, I'm concentrating on delivering for the NHS. And so that isn't a discussion I've had with anybody other than the people who keep asking me about it in the media. This money is because the NHS is our #1 domestic priority. People rely on it every day, and we're absolutely determined to make sure the NHS is the best it possibly can be.
So you don't...
From when I get up in the morning until when I go to bed at night, that's what I'm concentrating on.
You wouldn't welcome a general election whereby potentially the Prime Minister might get a majority, a better majority, which would allow him to take some stronger decisions?
I'm just interested in delivering for the NHS, and I'm absolutely delighted that we're able to do that today. You know, I've been working on these plans for these upgrades that are much needed, and I'm thrilled that the new Prime Minister has come in and ensured that the funding is available, you know, within 10 days of taking office. I think that's a pretty good start.
All right, Matt Hancock, thanks very much indeed.
Yeah, enjoy that
your
afternoon.
grandmother will be very proud.
Going down to Boston, that'll be a very special moment for you and the family as well, I can imagine, on a personal level. So they will enjoy that. I'm sure you will as well. Thanks very much, Matt.